Hello everyone, and I thought I'd come on and do kind of a dual purpose video. I've been contemplating this for a few days and woke up today and said, today is the day. So this video is not only an update about my cancer journey because I haven't posted one in quite a while, but also it's just something, it's some knowledge that I've discovered that I think is more broadly applicable beyond my cancer journey. And so my hope is that you'll hang with me a little bit on this video. I'm going to tap into a little bit of astrology. I know astrology is not everybody's thing, but I'm using it as a tool to help describe this knowledge that I've just revealed. I mean, it's really like I'm walking along my path and boom, there's this piece of information that I feel so compelled to share with people. In addition to giving an update on my cancer. So I'll try to keep the astrology part really concise because it can get overwhelming, but it's a really good tool in this case to describe the context. And then I think I can broaden it out to be more broad, like widely applicable, because you don't have to use astrology for this particular piece of knowledge that was showing up along my path. So with that said, the latest update with my cancer journey. So those of you who know, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. A clear cell carcinoma was the name of my cancer, is the name of my cancer. Back in the fall of 2016, I went through a chemo regimen of 6 treatments. That's the typical cycle. And that seemed to clear things up, and I was looking good by March of 2017. So I was clear from 2017 through all of 2018. And then in the summer of 2019, my CA-125 numbers, which is the blood marker that they watch, because I don't have a tumor per se, that's what they watch, and that started elevating. So they did a CT scan and found that there were some lymph nodes in certain places that were kind of puffed up. So that suggested, okay, the cells are back again. So I went on a clinical trial over the summer, and I think I went into the fall and really through the winter. And that was immunotherapy that I was on. And that was doing some good work, but it did affect my pancreas and also kind of puffed up my liver, got that going a little bit. So I had to come off the clinical trial. So more recently, I've started on the chemo regimen again, the same drugs that I was on before originally. And I'm about halfway through the 6 treatments. And I had a CT scan pretty recently, and it showed what they term it as disease progression. So they were seeing that, lymph nodes were getting bigger, and particularly up in the chest and in the throat area. So, I've been sort of in this state of like, whoa, okay, this isn't how this is supposed to go. And, have kind of vacillated between feeling the feels and then kind of an interesting dive that is what I want to talk about, that is about, getting details and getting things in order, getting your ducks in a row kind of feeling. That's all driven off from this CT scan. And then, they also want to do an echocardiogram this coming week and see what's going on in the chest, and is there something going on at the tip of my port, or is that just a skin sheath that has shown up? So there's a lot of like, I don't know what's going on. It's a very unknown land, okay? So that's sort of the update of where I am physically. I feel pretty good, I've just had chemo a couple days ago, and I feel great today, and I take every day as a gift anyway. And so, I'm just zooming along. Chemo and I are great friends. So things are going well from that perspective, and I I take it in very seriously when I feel good. I go by that as a guide for myself. So what I want to get to is to describe kind of what I've noticed because of this journey that I've been on. The early chemo, the period of, I was fine, I was in the clear, then on immunotherapy, then on chemo again, and now most recently, just a couple days ago when I had chemo, a new drug called Avastin was added in so that I can, that stops the production of blood vessels so that these lymph nodes won't be being fed blood, which feeds the cancer cells. So it's kind of it's what the nurse said to me is, okay, you're starting on cycle 1, treatment 1. So it was like, okay, this is the start of a whole new cycle. So I want to describe that in terms of my astrology. It's just a way for me to give you some context about what I'm getting for this knowledge, okay, that I so want to share because I think it's really helpful. So just, you don't have to know anything about astrology. I'm just showing you my chart and giving you very briefly, at the time of my birth, this is me in the middle here. We all have a chart, and this is you in the middle. This is me. And this is like a big tool belt. And I designed this. I designed what time I wanted to come into this world, where I wanted to be, like literally the city and the state. And that is what sets all of this up. So not only the date of birth, but the specific time of birth. So all that information together is what creates the chart. And you can think about this as you are the bridger, the weaver, as I like to call it, in the middle. And all of this is like a big tool belt. Everything in your astro chart serves you. And I firmly believe that. I do not feel that there's anything working against us. We have some rub points to be sure, but everything is working in your favor, okay? So that's just very quickly what an astro chart, how I think about it. It's a positive thing. It's a tool belt. It's your wiring that you chose. So what I've noticed is that I'm particularly with my cancer journey, because I have points on my chart, but also remember planets are always going around the chart. They're transiting, as we call it. And I've had a lot of activity down in this area. And so what I'm focused on is this bold meridian line right here that goes from the IC, the Imum Coeli as it's called, which means the bottom of the sky, up to the MC, the medium Coeli, which means the middle of the sky, or it's also called your midheaven. And this is the line that I know to be Kat in her body. When I chose this incarnation, this is kind of a core set of superpowers that we have, is this particular meridian within the body. It is the ultimate power that we can use to really bring forward our greatest potential. And because of the activity I've had going on down here since my cancer journey started, I know that this is implicated. I know that this is where the focus is. And so what's interesting is the other piece I'll give you with astrology, because I'm going to keep referring to it, is down here, this bottom of my sky. I like to think about this in a chart as the Rock of Gibraltar, and it's you with this steel rod, and you go, wow, this is your grounding. This is where you get your center to actually be here and function within your body. And I have a particular connection to that point in anybody's chart. I'm just really fascinated by it because it's our steady eddy. It is your Rock of Gibraltar, okay? So the symbol the Sabian symbol, and we don't need to get into all of what that is. I just want to tell you what it is. That point in my chart, this is the symbol. The Union Jack flag flies from a British warship. Okay? We're talking a British warship. Just remember that. Then up here, and this, by the way, is down in the sign of Capricorn, which is highly achieving. It's an earth sign. It's all about eyes on the prize, and you just keep taking one step after another, okay? Up here in the midheaven, this is the stage of your life. In your chart, this is the stuff that everybody can see. It's so readily apparent, okay? And it often has to do with what you choose as a career and what you do to make money. And so this up here is in the sign of Cancer in my chart, okay? Which is a water sign, and it's highly nurturing. It's kind of the mother energy, and it's ruled by the moon in astrology. So it's that very deep feeling. And I know that Cancer within the zodiac, I believe it to be the most deeply intuitive, because just like the moon, it illumines these deeper levels of who we are. And remember, this line for me is talking about the body. So it's tuning into these deeper levels within the body, and overall a very deep intuitive awareness, okay? So that point up there, here's the symbol that I'm going to refer to over time. It says a hen scratching the ground to find nourishment for her progeny. Sometimes I'm the hen, sometimes I'm the progeny, and sometimes I'm both. Okay, but it ties directly to that mothering and nurturing, but on a very public level, versus the warship is down in this place, which has to do with my sense of home, my sense of settledness, and how I run the house here that we live in, our family house. So this is very public with this mother hen business up here. And then one last piece is the moon. In my chart at the time of my birth is snuggled up tight with that midheaven. And the moon, again, is more illumination energy. I just talked about that. It illumines what is hidden. You can see more clearly. And so that's my intuitive ability. I'm just able to see things and that other people maybe can't see, because this is in a very public part of, it's all open out there. And once I opened to being very verbal about what I was seeing, even if people thought I was crazy, that's when this energy started really working for me. So this moon symbol, that's the last symbol I'll give, is me singing the love song. It's Venetian gondoliers giving a serenade. Okay, so I'm going to put the chart down, okay, but I just wanted to make that clear as context, because I'll keep referring to it. Hang with me here. I'm hoping I'm not making it more confusing. So the thing with these points, this IC to MC, you can think of, and this is true in your chart, and it's true more generally than that. It's the full stream of power that you have when you're talking about that whole meridian line. You're talking from your Rock of Gibraltar up to the stage of your life. It's all of it. And because I have the moon at the top of my chart, I tend to go to that intuitive place like that. I have a pull, just like the moon pulls the tides, and we have higher tides when we have a full moon. I tend to pull there, okay? So at the beginning of my journey with Cancer, I immediately went, those who have followed me, if you look at my videos, I was way into what I call the woo-woo, okay? I went right for that point, up where that top of my game, out there for everybody to see. Way woo-woo. I was putting stuff out there through videos and through cat in the hat. I was posting every day, making it fun and light, and I wanted to make it a nourishing experience both for myself, the mother hen, as well as the progeny, which when you're talking at that level of your chart, that's all of you. That's not my own family. That is everybody else. That is in my workplace. That is the broader community. It's the stage of my life. And so that really served me. I brought a lightness, and I saw a whole other layer of what those chemo compounds were. I called them elixirs. I called my port, my magi. I had all kinds of names for things. I was linking with the researchers who developed the drugs. All of that is so useful, and I need to tell you and keep reiterating, I still use those concepts every day as I walk my journey. I still use all those. But it was interesting now in the place I'm at that I could see, boom, that's what I did. And I really did not pay attention to the warship at the bottom, my Rock of Gibraltar. I did a little bit. And what with the British warship, that's about protecting my family, protecting my home, getting my ducks in a row, having a plan. It's very tidy, just like the military. And I really think that with the British military, like there's such just a wonderful cleanliness, a purity about it that I feel energetically with that symbol. And so I really, at the start of my journey, because it was so new, I really wasn't focused there. Then we're clean for 2017, 2018, and here comes the summer of 2019, and immunotherapy is sitting in my lap. This clinical trial that is brand new cancer treatment. I think it will be the future of cancer treatment. Does amazing things. People are cured of cancer, particularly for certain kinds of lung cancer and melanoma with immunotherapy, and it's just developing more and more every day. So I really loved the idea of helping advance science with my type of cancer, which they don't have a treatment for that's long lasting and known to work with clear cell carcinoma. So with that, I was forced into that British warship place because a clinical trial is very much, there is a schedule and you have all these meetings with nurses and your doctor and blah, 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 blah. And I was having CT scans every 6 weeks, which was a lot. And in our appointments, we would talk about symptoms. And meanwhile, in my chemo, that first phase, I was like, I'm good. I did not want to talk about symptoms, and I didn't have any. Besides some funky taste buds, I truly did not have any. And so it was a totally different approach. And I can see this now, where I'm at. That immunotherapy was something that it put me right down into the British warship. And I call that, and I'm borrowing this term from an astrologer I really like. It's the name of her business called Straight Woo. And this is this power stream that I'm talking about, where the base is the straight. It's the British warship, straight up, baby. We're going to talk symptoms. We're going to go through the list. We're going to run these tests. It's very like regimented, straight up. And there was no place for the woo in that, I have to say, at the top of my chart. When I was in the immunotherapy, I had a full head of hair. I had multiple comments from people, I'd never know you were in cancer treatment. Your energy level is just the same. I was so engaged at work. You just wouldn't know. And so they're really, and energetically from a woo-woo standpoint, I kept trying like the devil to tap in with those those medicines. There were two of them that I was on, and I could not get a read on them because energetically, and don't be weirded out, but it's like a galactic energy. It's cosmic. It's a very dear friend of mine saw the forms of it, kind of like paisley. It's kind of morphs and is very psychedelic, very synthetic, and hard to. There's not a lot of form to it. And I don't really have a strong connection at this point with the galactic energy. And so, really, the best thing that I found for that phase was what's called the float deprivation float tanks. I had a couple of sessions during that immunotherapy time. And I would describe it, that whole experience of immunotherapy as just floating in space. I really was in the void during that time because I looked completely normal and I acted completely normal, and good things were happening with the cancer cells. Some were getting, killed in the middle of the lymph node, but that would puff the lymph node out. So it was kind of hard to read then on a CT scan. But then there were other things that happened where, oh, boop, your liver numbers are going up, or then my pancreas really went off the charts. And that was like, nope, we're done, because it was too dangerous. And so I went from the good news to me of that was that it really drove me down into that Capricorn place of like, okay, we've got a plan, and these are the number of days that you do this, and you stay on a regimen, very much like the military. I didn't have the woo-woo. So coming off from that and being told, okay, going back to chemotherapy is the next best choice, and I did get a second opinion from Dana-Farber in Boston, and they agreed that that was the next best choice. And honestly, I had a feeling of coming home. I almost honestly feel sentimental about it, because the chemotherapy drugs that I was working with before, I was tuning them for my body in the first stage, and now it felt like, okay, now we're going to do another layer of work. And I had been through 3 rounds, before I had this latest CT. And it's because the chemo is based on elemental energy when we're talking about the woo-woo. And I have a very strong connection with elemental energy. That's kind of my operating system. So now I used to call them elixirs, and now I just call them my compound partners. I call them compounds. I don't know why. I'm just like, we're all even here and we're all playing a role. Okay. And what I noticed is that when I went back, the transition onto the chemo was not a problem. I was not in a place of like, okay, am I going to be in the woo-woo or am I going to be in the straight? It wasn't too long. I mean, I had a little vacillation between those two. But then this CT came along, because that's your first indicator of how is the chemo working. And that threw me for a loop. That really was like, okay, we have disease progression here. So from that, what was interesting is I went into feeling the feels. I went straight up to the woo, which the Cancer energy within astrology is very much feeling the feels. You're going in and you're feeling very deeply. And it's the crab. It's known as the crab in the zodiac. So you tend to pull back. You want to protect yourself. You want to be in that place of like, I just got to feel this. And then meanwhile, what was happening, I pretty quickly came out of that, and I had this is the knowledge that came up, is It's time now to integrate the British warship. You got to find your basis. You got to find your Rock of Gibraltar here, Kat, because you've already done the Woo, and you've already done the British warship with the immunotherapy, and now it's time for the whole power stream to come together. And so what I had a very strong calling to do is I went online, and I have not done this at all. I went on selected websites and looked at a little bit of information about clear cell carcinoma. Now, I have a stage, when I was originally given a stage for my cancer, it was stage 3C. And that means that it's in lymph nodes that are in my belly. And I don't know now if that has changed because we're talking about in the chest. So given that and just looking at those numbers, no, the survival rate of that is not very good because they don't have a treatment for clear cell carcinoma. This is a rare cancer that young women develop, and I'm young to have ovarian cancer. And I'm right in that category of these women who develop this. It's very rare. I'm the only one that my oncologist is seeing with this type of cancer. And it's why I was such a rare find for them for this immunotherapy clinical trial. So they wanted to get me on that, and I did some good work there. But I just felt it's where you have to follow your impulse. You feel this calling to, I'm going to go on and I'm going to look at that straight up. Remember, straight woo. That is my power stream, and you have it too, whether we're talking your astrology or there can be other ways to find this information. Straight woo, that's what it is for me. And I needed to get straight about this. And I'm still in the process of that. And the way that British warship looks, this is getting tidy, this is getting the details put together, is that I can go on and look at what that clear cell carcinoma, just select it. You don't have to bury yourself in it. You don't have to have every bit of information and go on these blogs and blah, 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 blah. No, very selected. And I was careful about if it didn't look reputable, no, I'm not going there. It's just information at this point. And then setting up, my husband and I talking to HR at my work and learning about the disability and the life insurance. And these are not fun things to talk about, but they're part of the British warship. This is real deal stuff that needs to be looked at, because otherwise it sits there and it festers. And what's come out of this is something I said to a friend yesterday, a dear friend, that fear is like kryptonite. And that's what I've discovered, is that the more I don't look at whatever part I don't want to look at, it acts like kryptonite. It literally will undermine any good woo-woo stuff going on up here, because I'm not looking at what's down here in my Rock of Gibraltar, or vice versa. Okay, so getting some details about clear cell, getting some details about HR and how all that process works. And then the next thing is, after I have my echocardiogram this coming week, we have a meeting to sit down with my oncologist and to go through that. And for me and Chris to ask questions about, okay, these lymph nodes keep growing. What does that mean? I mean, that can't go on forever. What happens? This is the first time that I am bridging, and I'm using that term on purpose, bridging this possibility of this information. Because again, fear acts like kryptonite. I can be doing amazing energy, magical, fairy dust, sparkly, wonderful stuff that I know how to do in the woo-woo. I got the props to do that, and I know I'm good at it. And I've affected my numbers, and I've affected my side effects and all of that. I've proven that to myself in that first round. I've proven to myself I can be the British warship when it comes to that immunotherapy. I had to be there. There was no chance of not being in that place. You had to. And so now it's this full power stream here. Okay, the straight woo. And the thing that I have noticed with myself and with the people who care about me, and this is with spiritual relationships, with my family, with people in my work family, just, people who are connected to me through social media, and myself. Don't forget, especially for me, there's a feeling that if you look at that stuff, you talk about this stuff with your oncologist, this is tough stuff. Like, what happens with these lymph nodes when they get too puffed up? What do? Blow up? Do they drain? Does that mean it automatically goes in your organs? Like, what does that mean? And then also, like, time frame wise, I'm not necessarily looking for a specific prognosis. Again, being selective on how much you're pulling from that British warship place, but still getting more information, because part of the British warship and taking care of my family is the fact that they need information to make their plans. Brett is about to go into college this fall. I'm an only child. My parents have plans that have to do with, am I going to help to take care of them as they get older? What's going to happen with their house? And obviously my husband has to make big plans. So that's just having a straight up tidy British warship in place. It doesn't mean that has to be what happens necessarily, because I'm in this big place, much like I was during immunotherapy, of I don't know, and I think honestly my oncologist doesn't know, because it's that type of cancer. I don't know. So this is the thing, is what I'm noticing is my own resistance, most of all, to wanting to find that, but it still is driving from within me. This is where the woo is kicking in and saying, Kat, you got to take a look at this. It's time for you to marry these two together. Take a look at the information. Get a folder together of the printouts of how the budget works. How does this British warship here at home? This is directly what this is about. How do we do that? How does Chris do the budget? This is the kind of stuff, like, you got to look at this. But there's real resistance, because in spiritual circles, people talk all the time about law of attraction, and I'm a believer in the law of attraction. But it's where I think things with that concept, it's a law of the universe that like attracts like. So if I'm thinking about making plans to go on to disability and show my husband how to do the budget, I'm essentially writing myself out of the picture, is what that teaching would say. But instead, what I think is happening, I think there's a shift with the law of attraction that's happening, and that will continue to develop, because no matter what, fear, if it exists under the surface, is like kryptonite. It still will find its way to take you down. So everything is either a call to love or love itself. And believe me, in my woo-woo place, I'm the Venetian gondolier giving a serenade. I'm singing my love song. And I'm finding nourishment for myself and for all of you in the very public forum to offer this information, to give it through my free readings, any way that I can. I'm trying to share this knowledge. So I've got the love song covered, but Where the kryptonite is my very rock of Gibraltar. It's how I operate within my body. And so by not looking at any of that, you're allowing it to be the kryptonite. And it doesn't mean that that has to come true. It might mean that it comes true. That's why I say it's a big if. But if you don't look at it and it just wants to receive the attention. It's like, okay, we got disease progression on our hands here. That's CT, that's data. That belongs in that British warship. That is exactly what Capricorn energy is all about. Data, and I've got this information, and now I'm going to take this step, and now I'm going to take this step. And by not even taking that in, that's why I say it works like kryptonite. And you're not working with your full stream of power. Straight woo. It's both of them. And I do the woo, I mean, especially with chemo. And I'm not having any trouble attaching to this new drug either, the Avastin, because that has a little bit of galactic energy to it, but not fully. So I do feel connected with it. And it's just another partner. We're all working in partnership. So I can do the woo. That's a given with this. But I just want to keep saying that you can't, it's wise to just not turn your back on this other information when you get to a certain part of your journey where you're given information. And are you just going to keep singing a love song and digging up whatever you can? Because honestly, when I'm just in the woo-woo space, it's a very sad place to be, is what I found in this part of the journey. Because I was just feeling the feels. I wasn't hearing my wisdom, what I call my team. I couldn't connect to that spiritual side at all because I didn't have any grounding. I didn't have any, okay, here's where we're at. And we're going to get this information. And often what you will find is that perhaps it's not as bad as you thought it was. Or, perhaps there are other steps that you don't even know are down the line. Like I didn't even know about Avastin until I got the Dana-Farber report. And then it turns out, yep, that's what my oncologist was planning on all along if we saw more progression. So I guess what my big message is working with the whole of that power stream. And whether astrology is one way to get at that, and no matter what's going on in your life, it depends on the transits that are happening. If you've got a troublesome area of life that is just persisting and it's a journey, astrology is one way to look at that, but it's also just built into astrology is the whole idea of opposites. And this is what I find with the spiritual community and spiritual way of living life is that we get really hooked into I have to only look at the positive. I can't go anywhere else. And what I've found through my journey, and this is so recent, it's so right there, it's so visible, is how settled I feel because I'm taking these steps of looking at the things that I have put aside. I delved into it with immunotherapy with I was just like very uncomfortable the way they ran those meetings and everything, but it had to be done. It was a study. It's data that they're collecting. It could not be more tied to a British warship. It was like, we're getting our ducks in a row. And then you reach a certain point that's like, nope, and you're out because this is too dangerous now. And so then you can start, all of a sudden now I find, I can work these two together. And it's just, I think the keynote of all this is to not to not look at the opposite of whatever. If you tend to if you are a really spiritual person and you have your own connection and your way of looking at things that might be very different from other people, and that's a very easy place for you, like it is for me, I can't ignore the fact that my basis, the opposite of that, no matter what, is automatically, you can guarantee it's tied in. So the opposite of being in the deep feels and feeling deeply intuitive into subjects and seeing things that are buried beneath, the opposite of that is having lots of detail right in your face. You can't not look at it. It's data. And it's driven towards what is the outcome going to be. It's all about outcomes, and it's very straight and what do I want to say, like fine-tuned. It's making a plan, it's having your ducks in a row, all those kind of things. So you don't necessarily need astrology for this, but if you find yourself going towards a particular place as you're going through a journey, and understand that every step on the journey, I'm so grateful that I took, the energy just led me there, to be honest, and it does for you too. It does for everybody. I was in the woo-woo place for that beginning of the journey because it was so new, and it lit me up. I didn't need the detail at that time because I was getting all of my footing, all of my Rock of Gibraltar was all in that woo-woo place with the mother hen. I was much more interested in sharing out to all of you, into truly showing that I felt vibrant, and I was vibrant every single day with my hat pictures on social media, all of that tied into that. And then the immunotherapy was that rush into the British warship. I didn't have a choice, and there was no woo-woo to connect to because I couldn't feel that energy. It's not something familiar to me. So that was kind of shut out, and I was going to work. I looked exactly the same energy, but a lot going on inside my body that ended up not going in a good direction. But I still am happy I contributed in the way that I did. And now I've got this opportunity. So I just, want to say that because you're really finding the middle way, and I'm finding this in a lot of my life, that finding your way to walk the middle way is what brings me the most peace, is not ignoring the facts that, because I am a believer in Western medicine and not everybody is, and I'm not giving this information just for people dealing with cancer. I want to make this applicable for everybody, no matter what journey, but it's something that is a journey, like you keep stopping. And I want you to see that every stop, or every segment is a better way to put it, of my journey has helped me weave the energies so that I can now bridge. That's why I had a picture of a bridge in the beginning of the video. I can bridge these two that seem like opposites. And so people who are really data-driven and in that British warship place who help with my care, when sometimes I let out a little bit of my woo-woo, they're a little bit like, okay, well, whatever, you go be doing that, And then people that are heavily spiritually involved are like, why are you even looking at that? Why are you even talking to them about those things? You don't want that for yourself. But the point is, for me, and my astrology directly shows it to me, I have to have a strong ducks in a row, tightly run British warship. And that has to do with boundaries and protection and safety for myself, but even more so because of where it is in the chart with my family. Not only my direct family, but then my parents out to that layer. And I watch myself vacillate between the woo and the straight. And it's just so, I can't even tell you the level of peace that I feel when I really integrate these two together, and to say they're not mutually exclusive, and you're not making a selection just because you're getting information. It's that you're then in a settled place from a Rock of Gibraltar. Remember, the meridian line is how Kat operates in her body. This is what works for me. Your astrology always works for you. I won't say that it's easy, but it works for you, and I can feel it. I can physically feel it. So if I know that Rock of Gibraltar is in place and I'm not ignoring it, the fear is no longer kryptonite for me. And I can work all of my woo-woo stuff. I can do that to the nines because I've also incorporated this base layer. So no matter what, there's value in the steps, the segments of the journey, because you're exploring these different polarities. That's really what it is. So just notice in your life, if you're going through a journey, where do you tend to go? Or do you notice, are there a couple of areas where you vacillate? And I had that too when I started on the immunotherapy. There was a family situation, and I took the bull by the horns. It was a really hard situation, but it was in service to making sure that my family was okay. So I went to that British warship place. Like, it was necessary for me to do that and have a difficult conversation. Or whatever it may be, talking to HR, talking to your oncologist, those kind of hard conversations. And then feeling the feels, or having times where you need to tap in with kind of a higher spiritual power. That's for me what that polarity looks like. But you can ask yourself with your journey, what is your what are those polarities where you kind of vacillate? And can you see times where it's really good to be in one place for a period of time, and then maybe at other times you're more secure in another place that feels, they will tend to feel very opposite, and that is on purpose. But the real power comes, your power stream, your straight woo, is when you join the whole thing, It's when you put it all together and you allow those to be like rolls of energy that work through your life. You bridge them, you allow them to be there together. And that's where I think we're all coming to with things happening on this planet. We're seeing that the division is not working. Even though we've known that for a long time, it's very visible. And so it's trying to find that place where those seemingly very opposite things actually work together. And all I can do is to give it to you through my experience with my cancer journey, because I do feel more settled. And that doesn't make sense to people who are on either end of those polarity points that I talked about. Why would my oncologist think that I would feel more settled because I have a way of referencing and looking at the energy of these compounds that I'm working with? Why, or that I'm watching visualizations or whatever as the chemo is rolling into my body? Why would she think that? Or that I'm using now flower essences and taking frankincense every day? I didn't do that before. But I feel called to do that now. It's part of the structure that helps me to be better, to be more. And so, meanwhile, for the spiritual end, it's hard for people. And this is hard for me because I have a natural pull in that area. with the moon being up there, and it's the stage of my life. This is who I am very publicly. And it's hard to say, yeah, I'm going to have those tough conversations. I'm going to ask her those questions. I am going to ask about rough time frames, and knowing that it's all a big if for all of us. We're all buying time on this planet. There's no like, we're not getting out of here alive, you know? So I can say to her, I mean, this is buying time, not a cure. But that's true for all of us. We're all buying time. And so it's where you start to see, I mean, these two can work hand in hand. They don't have to, what ends up sometimes happening is they kind of cannibalize each other. And I don't want to make fear be my kryptonite. And fear can show up in either place, either one of those poles that I've been talking about. So I just offer this as both an update, but I feel like hopefully the wisdom is clear in it, the knowledge that I've been working with. And all I can say is just, the reward is this sense of peace. It's like truly just walking in the wholeness of who I really am within this body as Kat. This is my wiring. You're looking at it. And when we are the weaver of these two together, instead of separating them and saying, I can only be woo-woo about this, or I can only be Rock of Gibraltar, the British warship, and I'm only going to deal with the details. Oh my God, I so can't do that. I really can't do that. But I found that I also can't do straight up woo. I can't do just the woo-woo because I get lost in the feeling of it and in the energies of it. And then I don't have grounding for what is important to me, my family, and how I run my very tightly run ship here at home, and what I consider as home for myself. It's a very specific sense of peace. And that's a really important way to think about that bottom of your chart if you are into astrology. It's very important because it is what settles you in the end, and then allows you to be all that out here on the stage of your life. And so bringing them together is where the real power is. So yeah, it's one step and then the next step. And so next week I'll have an echocardiogram, see where we're at with that, have a, kind of open conversation in a way that I have not had with my oncologist before. And I feel ready for that. I feel open to that. And not only is it a more settled, peaceful feeling, but it's also a feeling of freedom, because you don't feel like, oh, I can't do that. I can't go down that line of thinking. I can't, talk about those kind of things because I'm a spiritual person, or I've told her that I don't want to talk about those kind of things. And it's more you're taking that right back again, that you can be all of it, the full stream of power, in my case, the straight woo. And so just I offer it up because I think it's useful potentially for anybody who's on any kind of a journey where you keep revisiting something. You got to take a look at those different poles that you tend to go to, and there will be probably two poles and they will be opposing, and to see how you can best integrate them, to bring them together, because that brings the greater sense of peace and freedom. I'm literally feeling it physically, mentally, emotionally, coming out of a time of real bumpiness, of not knowing what end am I supposed to be on. And it's really that, just like your chart shows, you're right here at the center, always. And so be the weaver, be the one, the bridger, that brings these together, and then you've got your full power working for you. So I hope that's helpful to some people out there. Gives you a bit of an update on my cancer journey, and I do see only good things ahead. No matter, it's okay that it's a question mark. It's really okay. And I want people to feel that for me, even if they're unsure. That's, all of us are in that boat in one way or another. So thank you for listening and allowing me to share this knowledge that's just come up that feels so very important at this time. Bye-bye for now.